What's up guys, Stave back. In today's video, usually in all my videos, I always open the record program and record myself talking about the game or things, and today's video will be a little different. I wrote a little transcript and made some images and have some stuff to show because it's a lot of things that I want to share with you in this video. Today we will discuss a very important problem. The West currently has a very serious problem, which is unbalanced fort fights. What does this mean exactly? Well, most of players which plays the West, if not plays to duel, plays fort fights. If not play one of these two, do church or collect products to make money or to get EXP, and if get more time to play, do or duels or for fights, which is the two most important things I think to what the game is purpose, which is fort fights and duels. However, the battles today are completely broken because before I say why and my thoughts, I want to say one thing, because in most worlds there are no sufficient players, because like 90% of the worlds are dead. Defense always win because nobody wants to attack or has not that many players to have a good fort fight, so attack probably always lost. However, in our Colorado, which is the only world that matters, things are different because every single battle, let's be honest, not every single, but the major amount of battles that we had filled. This means that there are so many people that some are getting off, some getting left the battle. But what does the statistics show to us? Well, the attack side is way too strong. And as the other people that I talked or asked for what they think or their thoughts, most say that was because Sundance set. However, I think it's not. Sundance just makes even more unbalanced. Already was unbalanced before Sundance, as I will show soon in a thing that I prepared here. So let's start. So here I made a little timeline of sets, fort sets, and here on top I put the sets which is for attack side. Here I put for defense side, and down here I put sets that are for both sides, which is attack and defense. However, there are a few things that I need to explain about that image. The first thing is, if you have seen, there was a little order that Ino follows, which if you have seen Sundance, which is the most newest battle set, was supposed to be the next after the French because of Souza. However, without Sundance, things already was a little unbalanced, as I will show in that post here. This post I did before Sundance arrived. I made a little review about all the sets that we had in Oktoberfest, and here was with Souza. I mean, was without Sundance. Most using Souza, Langdon, Rolling, and French. So look, last 100 battles in Colorado.net. Battles that end with flag taken, battles that end with attacking killing all defenders, 22, battles that end defensors killing all attackers, 30. That is a trick here. Battles that end because of time, 38. Then I made a little extra things here. Times won by attack was 32. Times won by defenders was only 16. But here I put way more. However, times attackers lost because didn't feel it or because have no more time. 52 battles. And now, currently, the balance is way worse than that. In all 30 battles that end with defenders killing all attackers, in only 5 the attack side was filled. And the battles that end because of time, in only 7 attack side start with less players than defense. Yes, with Souza was already unbalanced. And my thoughts about why was already unbalanced is because of that here, the both-sided sets. But why? It's simple. It all started with Blackheart. If you don't know, Blackheart is the first set. It already have some random items that gives attack sector, but Blackheart was the first set that had attack sector and damage sector. What does this means? Some people don't know, but every single set that has damage, which is any damager, this damage that is showing here, it's not individual. However, the thing is that this set has the attack sector. But what does this means exactly? Well, as you may know, all these buffer sets down below here are weaker than this other above here. But why exactly? Because these sets with have sector bonus buff these that are individual. However, if you see this image that I prepared here and put 4 people to each side being worse, because as I already said, the buffer set is individually worse than the sided sets. Pay attention. Then, if you already know, the attackers have way more space and larger sectors. What does this mean? If the attack side and the defense side have the same amount of people buffing, in this example here, I put for each side 4 people buffing. As you can see, I'll exclude everything here to show better. As you can see, 4 people buffing with buffing gear, buffing for each battle side. Now pay attention. 4 players in the attack side can buff up to 124 players. And in the defense side, the towers are the largest sector. 4 people can buff only 28 players. And as you may know, the attack side can literally aim at one target at the same time, like who has the tower point or if he's holding a sector. Let's put the same amount of people. Here is the same amount of people. In the attack, only need one person, one single player to buff other 35 players. However, in the defense side, would need 4 people that are individually worse, doing less damage, hitting way less or dodging less, but buffing. In that example here, I would 100% sure that attack would win, of course. And here is a very good example. The battles from the 3 of January to 9 of January, all was attack that win. If you don't trust me about the sector buffs are way too stronger, then we had Dark Gunslinger. Dark Gunslinger has defense sector bonus and damage sector bonus. Let's do a math. I have here exactly what I use. This set currently is giving to a sector, if you're using attack, remember 35, the biggest large sector, which is these 3 down below here. 35 people would get 270 damage sector and 24 defense sector. And individually, I would be dodging less or doing less damage or hitting less than all my teammates. But it only needs one going individually worse to buff the same amount of people that would need 4. You're understanding how shit that is? When the Blackheart set was released, it arrived a little bit balanced because everyone was using it. There are a lot of people using it. So in every sector would have someone using it. Then after it, we had Langdon and Sundance. So, and Mikolai. So if you compare the skills, Mikolai is worse than Astor, maybe even. Let's compare here. And even if Mikolai wins the comparison, it buffs it buffs the Astor. It's worse. And these two things is shared if he is in the same sector. Okay, you can use Nikolai in both sides. Then Souza. Or even Captain. Let's see, a set from 2020. Oktoberfest 2020. Understand that these sets down below here is way worse individually than this above here. And to, I repeat, and to buff the same amount of people in this example would need 4 players individually worse to buff the same amount of people. That's crazy. And now let's worse the comparison, because if you know, there are 3 buffs that are sector: defense, damage, and attack, and it has no equipment that gives that 3 buffs. So let's imagine that for each sector would need someone with, let's say, Mikolai and someone with Dave Stutz. Then this means that need 2 players to buff each sector. Let's worse way more the example here. So in white is someone with Tuts, and in yellow is someone with Mikolai. Look, is even worse. It would need 8 players to buff the same amount of people that 2 can buff. For me, that's the reason that the battles are unbalanced. Of course, now is most because of Sundance, but before it already was because of that. Even in the post that I talked about the Sundance review, I said here, I know we need improvements in battles, and that for a long time they have been unbalanced. But I believe that the reason for this whole imbalance is not the lack of a decent attack set, but in the model as a whole, whether it be the amount of players that fit in each side or also the amount of rounds there are in the fort. That's a thing that happens currently. They always change the amount of people that fits in each side, because I remember once was like 140 people in attack and 120 something in defense. Now the difference between defense and attack is only 2. It's way more unbalanced than never was before. Let me continue here. But I believe that the reason for this whole unbalance went, whether it be the amount of players that fit in each side or also the amount of rounds there are in the fort, or the skills that if continuous like this is, at some point there will be so much tank and HP that everyone will need to take 10 critical hits to die, or also because the passives of each class are the same for over 10 years, and because in the past the sets gave a maximum of 100 skills of each skill. These class passives at the time did not make that much difference, unlike today, being extremely strong like the HP of soldiers or the hit and dodge of workers, or even the critical chance of duelers that I see a lot of people complaining about, but it's only strong because of the absurd amount of HP that these sets are giving. Besides that, it would be impossible for the attack side to win a fort battle without the existence of critical hits, which would mean defense always wins. Then again, before Sundance, it's not unbalanced because attack was always losing. The attack side was, like I show it here, was almost always losing because the battle always end of time. And not because the attack wasn't strong enough, because the defense was everyone full of HP. But before I finish the video, I want to share 3 solutions that I think should or maybe work. Probably will never arrive in the game, but I will share the idea, the opinion. As you may not know, the battles have 54 rounds. The round 56 doesn't exist, and the battle starts in round 2. The amount of rounds in total is 54. So, before Sundance exists, if the battles go up to 60 rounds, let's suppose, it would increase a lot the average that I showed here. Attackers wasn't winning enough amount of times, but they wasn't winning not because of the set be that good. Was because everyone is going full HP to defend the fort. However, another thing that could work is to buff this number here. As you can see, the towers gives different values of attack and defense. For some reason, it buffs more attack than defense. Why? They could buff this value. And another thing that could work would be fun if this happens. As you may know, to upgrade a fort is the same thing since 2012. I don't know when the West 2.0 was launched. Upgrade a fort is the same shit for over 15 years maybe or more. So one thing that could help is to give towers or barrack or the HQ or walls one more level to upgrade. And an example was the towers be 4x4 with the capacity of 16 players, as this example that I made here in Photoshop would be very nice. Fit 16 people here. One single person can buff way more people. It's not guaranteed that this would fix the problem, but it's a funny solution. Would be funny to see this in practice. Well, let me know what you think in the comments, and that's the video. Bye.